You are always on the move lately. Either you're traveling across the country or the world to give a talk, or Jonathan is muted, actually. You're muted. Mate, don't do that shit while you're driving.
Now I can hear things. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Hello.
Yay. Hello, hello.
You just back from your tour of Europe?
No, well, I'm back from the first part of the tour of Europe, which was just Stockholm. Only Stockholm, right? Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the rest of the tour begins. So my trip to Italy is in October, and then I fly to Japan directly from Italy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm also gonna be in Rochester between there too.
you're a busy man.
I am, and I'm also moving into my my new apartment right now. So I'm going back from Home Depot with a load of equipment to install Ethernet cables.
Awesome. Congratulations. What city do you live in? Ish.
Watertown, Massachusetts, which is outside of Boston.
Okay. The greater Boston area.
Yep.
Well, congratulations on a new place and on lots of talks. Is it the same talk in many places, or I know you mentioned it, but
Slight variations because of different talks have different lengths. But yeah, in general,
right.
It's the same talk. So yeah.
Wow, you really hit on a good topic then. People really wanted to hear that.
Apparently, yeah.
Yay, our very own highly popular Jonathan.
Yeah, there's a recording of it that I posted in general. It finally had, so Black Hat and DEF CON still haven't uploaded their version, but it's if you go to general, I posted a link to the SecT version.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just getting back from 5 days away, so I haven't really caught up on all the things.
Yep. I haven't read the updated version of the vulnerability disclosure working group document that everybody was working on. I haven't even chatted with Madison, who we were reading that together, earlier on.
It's wonderful.
Yay! Is it everything we hoped it would be and more?
I sure hope so.
Okay, cool.
Because it's out there now.
Yeah, I think it is.
I'll have to go look.
Yeah, once our fearless leader is done rebooting, according to Slack, it's what he gets the chance to do. Lucky boy. He can tell us how, because it was announced that in Dublin, and maybe he heard all sorts of lovely things from people showering us with praise.
Yay.
But in the meantime, he is rebooting. Lucky dog.
Did anybody else go to Dublin besides Probe, or was there what? Yeah.
I'm not traveling yet, so I did not go. Here's our fearless leader. Hey, Buckaroo.
So having multiple Zoom meetings in a day is going to be a complication for me, I see.
More than usual?
I'll have to figure that out. Now my PC locks up every time I open up the second or third Zoom call. It's pretty cool. It's a feature.
Oh, that's spectacular.
Gosh. this is obviously reason enough for you not to have more Zoom calls.
Give me a
So
moment
for
to get
everyone
more
else-
loaded.
Everyone else who's on the call, I just dropped a link to our agenda into the chat. If you haven't done so yet, please swing on by there and mark your attendance so we know that you were here and that you have contributed to our fine organization.
Thank you,
Can
Vicky.
someone add me, please? 'Cause
No,
it's been a
never.
while
Yes,
and
I
I'm
will.
looking- Yeah, I know.
Totally gonna do it, man.
If Uber with Jonathan is loud because my car is loud, feel free to mute me.
All right.
You are marked as attended, friend.
Speaking of friends, do we have any new friends to the group that wanted to introduce themselves to our little family here?
Sure. So kind of new, not really. So when Xilinx got merged into AMD, there's some funding issues with paying the OSFS, excuse me, the Open Source Security Foundation. So I had a drop for a while. Exactly. So I had a drop for a while, but now I'm back. Everything's all squared away, so it's good.
So
So-
you don't have to pay to participate. So if you know any friends whose companies can't afford Linux Foundation fees, their contributions are most definitely welcome.
Okay, that was not what my lawyer, our legal counsel, told me. So I was following them because I didn't want to argue with them. So I said, okay, I'll drop for a while. So I think payment went last week or week before. So
Obviously, anything you're doing on company time needs to be worked out between you and your internal teams. But anyone is welcome to come here and work as an individual contributor. We don't turn anybody away. We like all the help we get.
all right, sounds good. Sorry, Francis, but I have to believe my lawyer when they send me an email. It says you need to wait. I'm not, coming from a smaller Xilinx and then merging into a fairly large AMD. I'm not gonna. It's not a fight worth fighting.
Understandable.
So I'm back. So
Cool.
it's good to be back.
Welcome. Anyone else new and wanted to say hello to the team here?
I have been at the past 2 versions that I've been giving this talk, announcing the Open Source Security Foundation to the wider world and encouraging people who are interested in open source security to participate. So I don't know if anybody has taken me up on that offer, but that has been my advertising push as part of my talk.
Excellent. We appreciate that. All right. Can I have some volunteers to assist scribing notes today? That would be super nice. Except Jonathan. Jonathan, I don't want your notes.
I can attempt, but I'm just getting back from 5 days off, and so I'm kind of distracted. But I will gladly tag team with people if they are willing to help.
Yeah.
Except for Jonathan.
Yeah, except Jonathan. Many hands make light work. If so anyone's able to help take notes, that would be amazing. If anyone has any opens they'd like to talk about, please enter them into our agenda. Got a couple little announcements here, and then we'll deal with any opens, and then we'll do some administrivia. So for those of you that may not have been on the internet, last week was the Open Source Summit in Europe. And as part of the second day, on Tuesday, was OpenSSF Day. And there was a flurry of announcements about different activities within the foundation. One of those announcements dealt with the output of this group. We publicly announced the CVD guide for finders, which many of you here on this call assisted us in shaping. And so that was publicly announced, and I deeply appreciate the efforts of this group, and thank you. I think it's a good artifact for the community, and I look forward to seeing where that document, how that evolves in the future. Any questions about the document or about what went on at OpenSSF Day or the conference? Nikki?
I was wondering whether you, because you were there the entire time, I was wondering whether you had heard any
A hat.
feedback on it. Yes. Ooh, is that a new hat?
It's a new hat. It's kind of geese.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, yeah, I was wondering whether anybody gave you any feedback. They may not have had time to read it, but they might have had just a gut reaction of, oh, thank goodness this exists now. Any feedback like that? Or do you think it's too early?
From the guide at the conference, no. Again, I think it's a little too early. In general, about all of the OpenSSF efforts and the announcements in general, a ton of feedback from the participants there at the conference. And again, this was that there were a handful of us from the States there, but this is predominantly folks from the EU and the UK there. And so I have the suspicion, especially some of our calls that have earlier morning timeframes, I get the suspicion that we're going to be getting some potential new collaborators with our friends from Europe. It was also announced that they created a whole Linux Foundation focused on Europe and with made up of European constituents. So again, I think there's going to be an influx of participation from that part of the world. Very excited about that. But specific feedback from the guide, I haven't gotten anything. But in general, everybody was super appreciative and very excited to discover OpenSSF was a thing and interested in our further efforts. Francis. You're on mute.
Quick question about the guide now that it's open. How do we handle PRs, like, modifications requests? Do we want to review them in this council before, or do we want to do like some other format that you already have in mind?
Oh, you're stealing my thunder. What we will be doing with this meeting going forward is at a cadence the group decides. We will be reviewing issues and PRs, both from the working group backlog, but in addition to also the guides, if there's any PRs there. So we'll talk about anything that needs public debate, or if it's a typo or something, we'll just push that through. But if there's new sections that are requested to be added or changes, we'll talk about that in this group. And we just need to decide upon a cadence. So before I get to Jonathan, would the group be open to like would a monthly backlog scrub be too much? Do we want to do more frequent, less frequent? What does the group think about like a monthly review of all the issues and PRs from our assorted artifacts?
I like that.
Monthly, okay.
May if it's too little, we can go bi-weekly, but I think monthly is a good starting point.
Yeah, and if there's nothing, we won't talk about anything. We'll defer
Party.
Well, the call is already bi-weekly, right? So monthly makes sense than every other week. You've got a work week and a review week and a work week and a review week. So that's a great suggestion, Krog.
Sometimes I do okay. Jonathan.
Reaching around to get the phone because I'm working on wiring my apartment up with Ethernet cables. So I have been generating pull requests to fix open source security vulnerabilities at scale. And one of the standing sort of things that I've put in my slide deck, and I actually haven't spoken to anybody about that in this group, but the question that I get and the concern that I get, and the validly, is that when I'm automating the process of generating pull requests at scale, this is more an open, but I didn't have the time to write it down, or I don't have my computer to write it down in the list. That's so I automate the process of generating pull requests, and I am basically ODaying projects with vulnerability disclosures as a part of this, which is not in line with the guide.
when I'm dealing with vulnerabilities at this sort of scale, it's kind of impractical for me to go report and track down all the reporting emails and stuff like that. I am in conversations with GitHub about trying to get GitHub security advisories. Well, first off, get support for opening GitHub security advisories from a security researcher perspective instead of requiring a maintainer. But on top of that, also getting an API to allow me to create private GHSAs and then also generate pull requests with an API. But because that doesn't exist, there's no great way to automate pull request generation in a way that's private and not get automatically publicly disclosed. I guess it's not really a question. It's more just this is the state of the world that I'm currently working in, and the world that I'm trying to fix vulnerabilities at scale. So it's the unfortunate world that we currently live in, and anybody at GitHub who can apply some pressure and weight in directions, or other people that can apply pressure and weight in directions to make my life easier, so that I'm not ODing people when I'm doing this sort of work, greatly appreciated. So yeah.
We should hopefully have some exciting updates in about November that will help with some of this.
Does it come with an API?
That is a really great question that I don't have an answer to, but I will look it up for you.
The original design of what you're talking about that I've heard about does not come with an API. It just comes with a user interface. And if you try to automate that with like Phantom.js or Selenium or whatever, you'll get your account banned pretty quickly. I think I've heard. I haven't tried it myself, but I've heard that you get your account banned.
Yeah, I know API work is definitely on everybody's minds, but yeah, I suspect it's probably not going to be part of what we're going to talk about in November.
Yeah.
But
yep.
Hopefully we'll still help, maybe not with automating this whole process, but at least allowing parts of the process to even happen that currently can't.
All right, cool.
Very nice. I would highlight for everyone not currently participating in the conversation, there's been a vigorous chat about from the maintainer perspective in the foundation Slack around not necessarily Jonathan's efforts, but in general, the upstream, some maintainers view upstream about additional security requests. So I would highlight that to everyone to go look at the, I think it's the general OpenSSF Slack. And if you're interested or curious to read about that, there's some people have some feels. So it looks like, is anyone opposed to the monthly review of our backlog and issues and PRs? Any opposed or any alternate suggestions? All right, that is what we shall do henceforth. All right. Anything else, Jonathan, about you put it as an opening PRs? Anything, any other thoughts or conversation you want to have about that with this group?
No, but if anybody else has any concerns, issues, I'm actually I just saw that my job for running the pull or running diff generation is finished. I'm actually going to go regenerate the pull request I've already done right now and then go back to work. But if anybody has any thoughts, concerns, ways that I could do things differently, especially after watching my talk, feel free to reach out to me. The talk is in the general Slack channel from SecT in Stockholm. So I invite more conversations around this topic. I may, depending on what the long-term plan is for this, but I'm still trying to figure out, I would like to do more of this, and I may end up discussing with the OpenSSF writ large about, figuring out a working group around automated security fixes as like an independent working group potentially, because it seems like there is now 2 of us doing this between the Open Refactory and myself, and that may be irrelevant. Like at that point, if it's something that's becoming bigger than just me, it might be something worth exploring in that direction.
Yeah, definitely something for further conversation. Thank you. Another update before we get to the exciting initial backlog scrub. One of the efforts that this group participates in is a new SIG called the Open Source Security Incident Response Team, the OSS CERT. And just to give everyone a brief update on those activities, we have initially reviewed the mobilization plan that was provided by a bunch of participants in May in response to some of the things going on here in the United States around the executive orders around cybersecurity and supply chain. So we have assembled a team of people that's focused on trying to think through ideas of how we could implement a security incident response team within the open source ecosystem. We've split up that group into 3 focus areas. We are focusing in on, as I stall for time while it loads, we have a group of people trying to understand the problem space. How is coordinated vulnerability disclosure currently done within open source? And what are some of the gaps? What works well? We have another group that is working on identifying core services and processes for how this team could function. And then we have another group that will be focused on actually execution of the plan, which will be things like selecting tooling or hiring developers to write new tooling, hiring potentially people to participate as part of this plan, and then figuring out how we can coordinate volunteers to participate in this effort. So things are going along pretty well. There are is a full SIG meeting every 2 weeks. And then there are each of those streams meets either at a weekly or biweekly cadence. And we will continue to report back to this larger group since the working group here houses those efforts. Does anyone have any questions about the OSS CERT?
Who's leading the initiative, and which working group is it under primarily?
It's under this working group.
Perfect.
And I'm the main facilitator, but there are several friendly faces here on the team that are participating, amongst others.
I would be more than happy to. I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of different organizations. Like I had a chat with somebody at ShmooCon, and I ran the idea by them, and they said, "Oh, I had volunteer time for that." As an incident response, he runs an incident response company. So if you run the idea by people, they seem to react positively in a lot of cases. So I don't remember who I spoke to, but I can dig through my contacts and previous conversations to find that out if that would help. And if you have more direct conversations about this in the future with smaller group of people, feel free to ping me and invite me to that chat.
Yeah, it's an open group. Everybody's welcome to participate or look at our notes. Just like this call, the meetings are recorded, so you can review them on the Foundation GitHub or the YouTube channel. And then one of our first steps is going to be reaching out to existing upstream security teams like Kubernetes or OpenStack. We're going to reach out to the different distros. I just started a dialogue today with Solar Designer to talk about the OSS sec list. And so we're going to go around and try to learn what is working today and what might not work. And then we're also going to reach out to some upstream maintainers to kind of hear what services or capabilities they might benefit from. Randall.
You kind of covered it, but I was going to tell Jonathan that in group 1, we had to talk to people with experience. Jonathan might be a very good person to invite in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ping you, Jonathan, on Slack.
So any additional questions or thoughts about the OSS CERT? And we'll periodically report back here to this team about our progress. All right. I wanted to start to percolate in people's brains ideas for next projects for this group. We'll go through the issue backlog here in a moment. There may be something that rises to the top there that we want to focus in on. But one item that we've talked about a couple times is now that we have 2 CVD guides, one focused on maintainers and projects, and then another focused on security researchers. A future piece of work this group might want to take on is a coordinated vulnerability disclosure guide for consumers of open source. It might be beneficial to explain how open source works, how you'll have different projects function differently, and just maybe try to help explain to downstream how this ecosystem works and where they might best be able to observe or listen to try to capture information about disclosures. Vicky.
I think that could be interesting. It'll be tricky because this is a group of people who are not really, they have absolutely no exposure to this side of the process, right? But
The reader or this team?
the reader,
Okay.
the end user reader, the
Yes.
consumers, they won't even know, oh, is this a security bug, let alone how do you report it? So but finding a way to teach them that, I think, will be really, really valuable if we can pull that off. And it sounds like a great kind of collaboration that could be set up between this and the new end user working group. Yay. Teamwork.
Which the end user working group, I believe, meets Thursdays.
Every other Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific.
I'll be there. Francis.
In the spirit of like pursuing work in those 2 guys, or like maintainers versus finders, not versus, but and finders.
Mhm.
How about we look into maybe creating some tooling, some GitHub extensions, some GitHub apps to help maintainers deal with the CVD things that we provide and offer in the guides? Essentially make it easy for adoption, make it easy to do things right.
I think that would be a very worthwhile work. Now, I would, what may be a hindrance to that is I don't know how many folks have development background or inclination, but I think we definitely could start to cultivate some of those folks if we don't have those skills inside. But I think that's an excellent idea, Francis. Any other thoughts about future projects before we dive into our backlog? All right, folks. Do we have any suggestions on how we might proceed? Would we like to assign homework today that everybody should read through the issues and then come back next time with opinions? Or do we want to start to open each one of these up, working from the oldest to the newest, and start reviewing them today? So how would the group like to proceed there? Vicky?
So in SPDX legal, when we do this sort of thing, they are highly issue driven. And apologies in advance. I'm not saying you should do this, Crow, but well, what I'm about to say, the leader of the group, one of the leaders of the group, I know, see why I apologize in advance, frequently goes through all of the issues in advance, and adds comments and or closes or whatever, depending upon the various criteria that they have documented. And then brings everything to the, everything that remains open, brings to the team on the calls and say, hey, this is what I think, what do you think? Sometimes they're able to get others to chime in an asynchronous manner as well to make that process a lot smoother. But essentially they start at the oldest and just work their way through. They also, however, make liberal use of tags in GitHub. So they only review the things that are tagged for the next release. And they do a really good job of tag maintenance and triage and the like. So that's how that group does it, which is not necessarily how we need to do it, but it does work relatively well. They've been able to make a lot of progress in the past few years and whittle down a huge, just impressive backlog in that way.
That is an interesting proposal. Francis.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to suggest something similar, but how about we have a rotation of sheriffs, like an issue sheriff for the month? Someone among this call gets elected, we do a rotation so that we share the pain between Crow and everyone.
Oh, I like that one a little better.
Also gets us all involved a little bit more intimately into these issues.
Mhm. So what is everyone's thoughts on the two proposals here, or is there any additional alternate ideas or refinement on the first two suggestions? All right.
Sorry, I was on a call. My apologies.
We all have day jobs. We can't play with open source all day long. Well, you can because you work for open source, but that's different.
Well, I can. This is what I'm paid for.
Yeah.
My job has nothing to do with open source. I just do it because I love it.
And we love you for that. Thank you. I really liked Francis's idea now that I'm back, but thanks to the magic of Bluetooth, I was able to hear it. Yeah, Francis, I like the idea of having the sheriff or, you know, ring leader or whatever it is, right? I think that's great. Kind of bounce that around. Nick can be issue DJ. Heckin' yes. Let's do that. But I think it can be a really good way to get new people involved as well. You know, especially if we do what SPDX has done and really done an improving but good job so far of documenting. Here are the principles we use in these situations. You want a new license added to the list, here's what you have to do. You want this here. Because a lot of the work in these issues ends up being just chasing after people and saying, hey, you forgot some information. And that's something that frankly anyone can do if you give them the checklist, more or less. So yeah, huge plus one. Yay, Francis.
Sure.
And just to be a little shifty about it, Vicky, would you agree to do the first rotation so that you can get us a little skeleton playbook to, you know, build upon for the next sheriffs, DJs, whatever?
I definitely appreciate that. And in normal times, I would say yes, but right now I have to dodge that for reasons that will become evident in the not too distant future.
So I'm glad to sit down and do the first review. I won't have time to document a process. So if I can get a volunteer, maybe we could get a half-hour call together and somebody could help document process while we go through the initial triage. But I'm glad to donate that time and then to get something codified here in our repository, kind of a ideal process.
Happy to schedule some time. I can draft something up. Vicky, if you have half an hour, like in the coming 2 weeks, we could meet just 3 of us so that you give us a little like ideas about what works well with this SPDX process that you like, and we can probably mimic the good parts.
Yeah, totally. And within enough advance notice, I might even be able to get, you know, Jelaine or Steve from SPDX, the leaders of that group, to join us.
Cool. All right, I'll ping you too.
Then maybe we can get them to stay.
Sticky
That would be
contributions.
nice.
We like
Yes.
sticky contributions. Great. So we will look forward to getting that set up. And on our next call, we will present the group with some issues that we feel need to be debated or decided upon amongst the collective. And also, hopefully next time, just so everyone's aware, the Technical Advisory Committee of the foundation has been working very diligently on documenting process and procedure for how working groups should be, how they should be managed and conducted. So there's going to be some changes to our group charter. So once I'm able to lock in some operations help from the foundation folks to help me make those changes, I would like to review that with the team so that we can formally vote on, we accept this charter or make any alterations for our particular goals and desires. But that'll be coming in the next few weeks, pending, Jory, Khalil time to sit with me to help me figure out how to merge those. And I think potentially this process that, Francis and maybe Vicky and I get to work out, that would be something that would be another good thing to share with the group and kind of just get everyone's thumbs up, thumbs down on. Do we have any additional topics we would like to discuss today? We don't have any open pull requests. We have a bunch of open issues that I think will be interesting to talk through. Vicky?
Not a topic, but I really like your idea of homework. So everyone in the next 2 weeks should go through all these issues, add comments, and just kind of work asynchronously, fit it in the cracks between various calls. I think that would be really great. And as we do so, just sort of consider what are the tags we might use, what might be useful for this group. Not tagging for tagging's sake, although I am team metadata, yay, bring it on. But I don't want to add process that doesn't deliver value, right? So what would we use the tags for? SPDX uses it for releases and the like, but we don't do that as such. However, it could be really helpful. But reviewing them all will give us that overview that we can start to come up with these ideas.
I'm not a super GitHub expert, so let me ask a question. If we create tags, is it across the whole repository or is it exclusive to issues versus PRs? So it's shared between issues and PRs?
I believe they are.
It's exclusive to it's exclusive to issues. You can have PR templates, I think, but oh, sorry, wait. For tags are PRs and issues, but like it's not a bad thing, right? There are also sorry, my brain was thinking about templates. So one of the things you might want to also set up is that there's issue templates that when people are creating the issues, they can say, this is a feature request, this is a change, this is a bug, like whatever, like stuff like that. So there may be some, I presume this repository will be relatively low traffic, but it may be worthwhile to, as you start seeing evolving trends in the issues created, that you might want to, let the people auto self-sort into different issue types prior to their creation. And then also like have like a form that they fill out this is the information we'd like to see.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I think reviewing all the existing issues will give us that picture as well. Tags, do we have trends? If we have a trend, does it make sense to make a template so we're able to gather the information that will make it easier for us to resolve the issues and just sort of start to evolve that process now, but it's definitely going to be an iterative thing.
And the reason I ask is we don't have code yet. That may be a future thing, especially based off of the suggestion of creating tooling around some of our practices around CVD. But I would like to, we do have the documents, which I think from a PR perspective, we want to figure out some way of versioning or whatever, however So I think the tag would be having those kind of software centric tags, I think add value, even though we don't have code yet.
Yeah, and SPDX Legal has no code whatsoever, but it has releases, it has milestones, it has tags, and it really helps to keep the project on track. Well, that and some very skilled oversight and very nice people, which we have. Look at that.
We have a whole great big family of folks here. I'm excited. All right, so any additional thoughts? Again, your homework, please review the existing issues. If you have thoughts or feelings, please make those comments. And then there are certain things that are a little more technical, like we have a request to embed CPE names into binaries. So if you have a particular skill or interest or know people, try to loop those people in on talking about and commenting on that particular item. And we will meet again in 2 weeks if there are no other opens for the group. All right, thank you all. We'll get together and do a scrub, but all comments are welcome. I look forward to it, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks all. Thank you.